Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and welcome to another episode of the Weekly Reset, Taliesin and Evitel's Wondrous Wisdom Show. And yeah, that was a 7 days, wasn't it? Not only did patch 10.1.7 Fury Incarnate release with new cinematics and story quests and heritage armor quest lines, and not only is Secrets of Azeroth now in full swing too, which is legitimately one of the best events in the entire game ever, but to the surprise of basically no one at this point, we also got the reveal and PTR of the next major patch, 10.2 Guardians of the Dream, which to the surprise of basically no one, especially people who were watching this channel a whole year ago, is set in the Emerald Dream, centered around the new world tree. So there's a lot to talk about. To the extent where, and this feels really weird, I'm actually not going to talk about Fury Incarnate today at all. I've got lots I want to say about that patch, especially the heritage quest lines, but this video is going to go out on a Tuesday. The new Velen Eredar quest lines will be out by then. I think it's probably best to hold off until next episode for that and do a proper analysis, which means today is all about this beautiful green stuff. So you know what? Yeah, let's do it. Let's really indulge in everything we know from the reveal, interviews, and data mining of patch 10.2 so far, and help me decide if I think it's good or... It's the Emerald Dream. Fyr'alath is attacking the World Tree with the help of the Druids of the Flame because he wants to steal the power from it and create the Burning Dream. Because of course he does. He's Fyr'alath. He's put about as much thought into this plan as Flea does his wardrobe choices because he just loves power and he loves fire and everyone else can just suck it. So the zone itself is really interesting, being not just the Emerald Dream, but specifically the Emerald Dream version of that area in the ocean to the west of Anaran Plains and the Emerald Gardens, which is circled by suspiciously empty and unused islands and rocks. The map actually fits right over the top of that, utilizing those rocks as part of the zone and filling out the landmass in the center, which is mostly taken up with and under the shadow of Amirdrassil, the new world tree. Gosh, they just grow up so fast, don't they? This means, of course, that all of those predictions before Dragonflight even released that speculated that that big gap in the ocean circled by islands would seem a great place for a new world tree were, of course, spot on. With the Emerald Dream obviously being like an early save file for Azeroth, it suggests that there used to be a landmass there on our Azeroth too. And I guess it's fair to speculate that was sunk in the Sundering. Secondly, more importantly, it continues Dragonflight's quite unique, unusual approach to patch zones as being areas that are not somewhere else away from the main expansion continent like Nazjatar or Argus were, but rather places that were kind of there all along. Zaralek was beneath our feet the entire time, with little hints of its existence sprinkled throughout the first act of Dragonflight. Amirdrassil is the Emerald Dream version of an existing zone, and I like how that grounds each new patch zone in the Dragon Isles. Makes me think, will they be pulling the same kind of trick in 10.3, if there is a 10.3? More on that later. And if so, where, what will that be? And that's all very good and interesting, but if we're going to get through all of this, then we're going to have to start getting a bit more quickfire. So, Night Elves and other Druids and Green Dragons have set up camp underneath the New World Tree in its roots, just like Nordrassil on Mount Hejal, which, if this is to become the new home of the Nelfs at the end of all of this, would seem to indicate this is where that new capital would be, beneath the tree like Nordrassil, rather than on it like Teldrassil. There are currently 4 chapters of main campaign storyline to play through, setting the scene, getting your bearings in the dream, battling the Druids of the Flame, learning what their deal is, and also helping Vyr'anoth get together her old lieutenants and convincing primalists who are starting to have doubts jump ship and join us, just like Vyr'anoth did. If Fyr'alath turns the world to fire, where am I supposed to live? Yeah, seems like a reasonable fear when you think about it. Vyr'anoth is just there and a fully fledged, enthusiastic part of the gang now. In fact, we've been told there is also a whole quest line where her and Rathian go off trying to recruit the misfit flights, like the Storm Drakes and Nether Drakes. Look forward to seeing that. You get given a new dragon riding mount, the Flourishing Whimsy Drake, just for turning up in the zone. And as you can probably see, there's also a ton of side quests around this area too, which should get you neck deep in all that beautiful Emerald Dreamy lore and goodness. There's 20 renown levels with new faction Guardians of the Dream, which we haven't seen yet, yet, but which we are told will be the standard collection of Drake customizations and other cosmetics. There's a new world event which goes on in the zone. Yeah, I know. Dragonflight's events are a bit of a meme at this point. It's like, hey, what's the new feature you've got in mind to wow us? And it's like, we've got a world event. And it's like, oh. And it's like, but this one is like a mega world event, which is like 3 world events, one after another. It's nothing like any world event you've ever seen before. And you're like, are you sure? Because it kind of feels like I have sort of seen it before in literally every other Dragonflight patch so far, sort of. I absolutely understand world event fatigue at this point. My heart sank when they brought it up in the reveal, but then I remembered that I always kind of enjoy them. I even enjoy Dream Surges, honestly, but don't tell anyone that because I want them to think I'm cool. And also, let's be real, Anne Stickney could sell me anything. She could be like, hey, Tali, I really think you should check out this heel versus babyface Greatest Hit CDs. I think it's right up your alley. And I'd be like, well, if you say so, Anne, I'll give it a go. So I'll give the mega event thing a chance, I promise. There's obviously new dragon riding courses, as you'd expect, and new dragon riding glyphs to collect with 2 new abilities, the best of which is a button with 3 charges that replenishes 1 vigor every time you press it. Massive OP. And also, there's a Pathfinder achievement coming with the patch too, which enables what we now will be calling non-dynamic flying, or swim flying, or old style flying, or oh god, it's so slow, just please, oh god, seriously, it's so slow. But at least I can hover flying. The raid is called Amirdrassil, the Dream's Hope. Amirdrassil, of course, the name of the tree, but for at least 7 of its 9 bosses, it doesn't happen on or around the tree at all, but rather in a big dragon facility in the northwest of the zone. There's a green bit we fight through, and then a fiery bit we fight through, and then the penultimate boss, Tondral's Sage Swift, has what looks like 4 different phases for his 4 different druid forms, and in between each phase is a dragon riding section where we mount up on our drakes, or whimsy drakes, and chase him through the air to the next section. So yeah, a dragon riding boss. And okay, so the dragon riding is like a chase bit in between fighting bits rather than a fighting bit itself, but that's still a win. That's still a really great dub, especially as it gets us to the final confrontation against Fyr'alath, which does happen on the tree itself, which will be awesome, and kind of what the whole raid should have been in my opinion. But okay, sounds good. And since we're talking the raid, let's talk Season 3 and tier sets. Now, a lot of people were pretty down on the glimpses of the new tier sets that we saw in the reveal video, and I was too, because they didn't look very good. But looking at them properly on the PTR, I think I've totally changed my mind, because there are sets in here that aren't just stone cold bangers, but are literally, in my opinion, some of the best sets ever put into the game. Mage set? All-time classic set, like judgment levels of classic as long as they sort out the hair clipping, whilst also keeping the hair showing underneath. Lose the hair as usual, and this is still a 10 out of 10. The Death Knight set with its moving jaw and seething rivers of blood or poison or death, depending on the color variant, shoulder pads, and spikes coming out of the eyes. All-time classic set, mate. The Shaman gear with the animated wolves on the shoulders, which are a visual representation of the 4-set bonus. All-time classic set, mate. People are down on the Warrior set, but I actually really like how smooth and beefy and juggernauty it is. Dude, even Evoker has a banging looking set in 10.2. Evoker! One set that people have been very critical of is the Druid ensemble, but I actually think that works as a callback to Kata era sets, using that classic silhouette style, but with 2023 levels of high res, and especially when you consider this is the leather world set from questing and world content and aspirant, etc. Druids are doing well in patch 10.2 in everything, as we will see. Almost everything, as we will see. Actually, the world sets in general are top tier, just like they were in Zaralek. Again, legit some of the best stuff in the game. And sorry, we were talking about Season 3, weren't we? The Creation Catalyst will be open from week 1 of the new season, but will only gain a new charge every 2 weeks. Still, most people will consider that a massive win. The thresholds for filling out the raid section of the Great Vault will be lowered from 3, 5, and 7 bosses down to 2, 4, and 7 bosses, which also means, of course, that you only need to kill 2 mythic raid bosses in a week to guarantee the sweetest of options there. Oh, and all dungeons completed from heroic level up will now count towards the dungeon tally in the Great Vault too, although obviously unlocking appropriate level options. Big dub there. 10.1's item upgrade system will remain in the new patch, but with much simplification in the currency side. Crest fragments are gone from now on. Whole crests will just drop instead, and they are a currency that goes in your currency tab instead of in your bags. More dub than a nightclub in Hackney. Thank you. We've been told there will be extra upgrade tracks in the highest level gear in Season 3 as well, which might be why the season sees a much larger increase in overall item level than we've become used to this expansion. Mythic Amirdrassil will drop loot up to level 489, an increase of 36 levels over the equivalent gear from Season 2, as opposed to the 26 level upgrade we saw from Season 1 to 2. Let's talk mounts! There's obviously the Whimsy Drake, which if you're a fairy dragon is the fairy dragon your fairy dragon girlfriend tells you not to worry about. There's obviously the standard collection of creatures from the zone, including cat raptors, which I just love, but don't forget the flying flaming owl that drops from Mythic Fyr'alath, or the Shadow Flame Fyr'alath, which you get for ahead of the curve, or the standard Fyr'alath, which has a chance to drop from any difficulty. And speaking of Fyr'alath drops, don't forget the legendary axe, which we don't know much about yet, but which we have had confirmed is a strength two-handed axe, which means that in the Emerald Dream patch, there's a legendary that druids can't use, which seems a bit weird, doesn't it? Not that druids mind, of course, no, and especially not on the forums, where all the talk was about how excited druid players were to basically get an entire patch basically dedicated to them. And honestly, so what if they couldn't use the cool two-handed axe legendary from the final boss? It would surely just be greedy to demand that as well as the other cool stuff that Blizzard, and no, it was a shit show, obviously. RIP druids. That's a big L. Holy shit, IDK, how Blizzard can be so out of touch 90% of the time. Uninspired and unthematic. Lol, fish those tree-hugging hippies. Make it an axe with strength that only 3 classes can use. Fish everyone else. Way to read the room, Blizz. Good job. Really good job. Sarcasm. I get it. I do, but I'm not sure how much I can really bring myself to get upset on Druid's behalf in this particular instance, since these are their new Boomkin customizations in 10.2. These are their new travel forms. These are their new cat forms, and this is their new bear look. Oh, and also, this is their new bear look as well. An Owlbear for tanking, and should we be real, just for a second, that's better, isn't it? Admittedly quite cool axe. Owlbear form. Does that help, Druids? Are you feeling just a tinsy-wincy bit better now? Having all these new Boomkin options, though, does also suggest, of course, that 10.2 will not be deleting Boomkins, so sorry, swings and roundabouts. A quick look at some Datamined stuff that was in this last week's build, which doesn't really fit in anywhere, really, like the Warlock motorbike mounts, which are obscene, or how about the Dreadlord armor and wristwatches? Looks like trading post stuff, that, doesn't it? Or how about the Logosh and Sylvanas transmogs? Money is that these are either new store items for money, but don't forget you get tendies with them too. But more likely, in my opinion, BlizzCon digital ticket items, which would be pretty cool, actually. As always, we are including links to loads of Wowhead articles below, which go into this stuff in more detail, so you can enjoy looking at new models and things like that in your own time. But there are 2 questions I have to ask before we move on from 10.2 today. 1, is it any good? Fair. And 2, is it the last major patch of Dragonflight? Ooh. So, my impressions first. And I have to admit, when the patch was revealed, I was actually in 2 minds about it. On the one hand, Emerald Dream is a big deal and very exciting. Not as exciting as maybe it could have been if we hadn't worked out that's where 10.2 was going to be before the game even launched. And honestly, that's no one's fault, but still, big deal, especially with the new world tree being part of it too. But I have to say, I feel this is the patch where Blizz kind of needed to mix things up a bit, because Defenders of the Dream follows a very recognizable Dragonflight patch template, which is good. Dragonflight is a banger expansion, and I am enjoying it thoroughly. But I don't think I'm alone in feeling like the game was ready in 10.2 to add something to the new patch mix other than a new world event, but, you know, in 3 parts. The fact that the Mythic Plus dungeon pool only includes 2 Dragonflight dungeons, which are really one Dragonflight dungeon, and 6 dungeons from other expansions, feels like there's more reliance on reheating old content than the first 2 seasons had. And also, and look, I know these next things are purely subjective, okay? They are not real criticisms to be taken seriously. I know that, but just from a personal point of view, the new raid could have been in the new world tree, like on the branches of it, among the roots of it, through the leaves of it, and instead most of it is in our 3rd dragon built facility of the expansion, on the other side of the zone from the tree. Also, and this is a really weird one, but maybe some of you will understand, I'm just not sure it's green enough. Yeah, this is so weird because obviously the whole thing is green, right? The environment has got that same sort of thing going on as Zereth Mortis in that it's all weirdly blue. There's like this bluish haze to everything, which means a lot of the time I'm thinking, wow, it's great in the Emerald Dream, just wish it was a bit more green, you know? The Emerald Dream at the end of the Emerald Nightmare in Legion, that was green as that was as green as Miss Piggy's finger. This is just a bit blue. Like I say, not a real criticism to be taken seriously, but please let me know if you feel the same in the comments, because I think I might be going mad. There is, though, an important footnote to this entire opinion of Guardians of the Dream. It was formed initially entirely from the presentation, and it has changed since playing the PTR. Because actually getting in there, doing the quests, flying around the zone, I've had a really good time. The zone itself is absolutely stunning, if a bit blue. Especially the tree, which feels significant. The gathering forces and the base camp make this feel like an event patch with genuinely high stakes. If being told about 10.2 left me less whelmed than I was expecting, playing 10.2 so far has brought that sense of excitement back, and I am all in. Which brings us to our final question. Will this actually be the final major patch of the expansion? Because Shadowlands, of course, did essentially end on its 0.2 patch, Season 4 being a fated 2.5 with no real new content. That was because of the shitty world situation we all went through for a couple of years back there. Except Ian Hazakostas and Steve Danusa still say, even now, that they always intended Shadowlands to be just a 2-patch ride, which obviously no one believes. But then, what if they were actually telling the truth? What if that's just the new normal, and Dragonflight has been planned in the same way? All the devs seem strangely unwilling to confirm or deny that there will be a 10.3 in this week's interviews, and there are other small clues too. The Shadowflame Fyrakk mount is an ahead of the curve mount, as in you get it for completing the raid on Heroic before the season ends. And starting with the Moose and Hellfire Citadel, ahead of the curve mounts have only ever been a feature of the last raid of an expansion before now. It was also said in an interview that 10.2 would see the conclusion of the tier storyline, which has been running throughout the expansion. And I don't know about you, but I was expecting that to run right the way through Dragonflight. Maybe it is. And sure, devs have also said in this round of interviews that the story of Dragonflight is not over. But the story of Shadowlands wasn't over when we beat the Jailer. We got some really good epilogue quests in 9.25, which wrapped up Sylvanas and Tyranda's storylines. And if there wasn't going to be a 10.3, then you'd expect something similar in 10.2.5 with the resolution of the dream stuff, the probable appearance of the new world tree in Azeroth, and the Night Elves making it their new home. You don't need a 10.3 to do that. And sure, Wowhead of Datamined a cool blue armored drake skin, which is marked as the Season 4 Gladiator mount. But need I remind you, Internet, that Shadowlands also had a Season 4 with a Gladiator mount, but did not make it to a 0.3 patch. So is Fyrakk the final boss of Dragonflight? I hope not. It would make a pretty good climax, narratively, I suppose. Dead Fire Guy and a good, on our side, or maybe nobly sacrificed, Ice Girl with a new world tree appeared in the Dragon Isles, and the flights all back together, chilling out together, having fun, is a fairly solid resolution. With Iridikron and his Void buddies waiting in the wings for a nice big 11.0 reveal at BlizzCon, probably the week before or after 10.2 goes live. Fine, but I just like Dragonflight. I would love to see it continue, not just in terms of being a cool expansion, but also that incredible patch cadence. I don't want it to wind down into a fated season for 8 months at the beginning of 2024 while we all wait patiently for 11.0. But if you had asked me just a couple of weeks ago if I thought there would be a 10.3, I would have said yes, definitely, no doubt. And I still think there will be, but not definitely anymore. I'm more doubtful about it than I've ever been. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. And thanks for joining us today. Evitel was meant to join us right now for a So Free Talkie bit, but Penny, our youngest baby, didn't go to sleep for her nap today, so the hour we thought we were going to have, we didn't have. Parent stuff, you understand. You can still see plenty of Evitel on our Twitch streams playing Baldur's Gate 3 times a week, and rest assured her face will be back all over this channel in the build up to 10.2. If you like this episode, don't thank us, thank our patrons who give their actual real life money to make all of our work happen. And guys, seriously, thank you, because without you, there would be a whole lot less Taliesin and Evitel. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Anne Stickney. No, my name is Taliesin. From me and Evitel, and Nyrin and the non-sleepy Penny too. Until next time, cheerio.